Good morning, everybody. How are we doing today? It's another wonderful Sunday morning and time for another podcast. So to get the quick plug out of the way, we stream and record this live at twitch.tv/DJ_funky_fresh on Sundays at 9 a.m. EST. 90% of the videos I stream, I end up recording and putting up on YouTube, including this podcast at youtube.com/DJFunkyFreshGaming. And, of course, we've got the, we have all of the podcasts posted on Spotify. Just search for Funky Bunch at Sunday Brunch, or look for, or just search for DJ Funky Fresh, or any of that. So, anyway, today we're going to be discussing Deus Ex. Now, for those of you who saw it on stream, we played Human Revolution and Mankind Divided. What you don't know is that's games 3 and 5 in the Deus Ex series. Which means there's 3 games we haven't talked about. Yep, they're numbers 3 and number 5. But they're the only ones that have Adam Jensen as the main protagonist. Game 1 was released in 2000 on the PC. It was then re-released in... let's see. When was this re-released? It was re-released on... doesn't say. But re-released on the PS2. And then in 2012, it was made available on the PS3 as a PS2 classic, but only in Europe. The second game came out in 2003. Human Revolution came out in 2011. The fourth game came out in 2014. And the fifth game, Mankind Divided, came out in 2016. But anyway, let's discuss the first game, called Deus Ex. Deus Ex is a cyberpunk-themed action or role-playing video game. Let's see, which combines gameplay elements of a first-person shooter and those of role-playing games. The game received near-universal critical and industry acclaim, including being called Best PC Game of All Time in PC Gamer's Top 100 PC Games in a poll carried out by the UK gaming magazine PC Zone. It was a frequent candidate for and winner of Game of the Year awards, drawing praise for its pioneering designs and player choice in multiple narrative paths. It has sold more than 1 million copies as of 2009 since its release in 2000. So, as you can see, they love it. And I can get it on Steam. So, if it's actually something you think you want me to play, heck, we could start it as soon as Wednesday, to be honest, because we have that slot to fill. We have 2 choices to go for immediately, or we could jump back into the Deus Ex universe. So keep that in mind. Anyway, set in the dystopian world during the 2050s, the central plot follows the story of J.C. Denton, an anti-terrorist agent employed by the United Nations Anti-Terrorist Coalition, UNATCO, as he uncovers a deep and ancient conspiracy, encountering fictional recreations of organizations such as Majestic 12, the Illuminati, and the Hong Kong Triads throughout his journey. So, gameplay. Deus Ex is both a first-person shooter and a role-playing game. The role-playing parts extend not just to the character's skill customization, but also the flow of the story. As J.C. Denton, the choices you make in dialogues, more importantly in how you play the game, can alter events in the story. While the main path of the game is set in stone, within that path there's a lot of room for deviation in playing styles. Most any given situation can accommodate the sneaky type of player, or the type that goes in guns blazing. For example, a building might be guarded by robots and you have to get in. You might sneak past the robots, lockpick the door and go in undetected. You could hack a nearby security console and set the turrets to shoot the robots. You could blow the robots up with rockets or grenades. Or you could snoop around and find a completely different means of gaining entry. You can kill almost any non-critical character in the game, not just nameless NPCs. Alternatively, one could align JC with a pacifist moral code and play the game without taking a single lethal action against another human. Killing NPCs may lead to unique dialogue or make the game more difficult, but it's possible. Deus Ex doesn't handle player choice like most modern games in that it does not very often have a binary choice of doing A or doing B. There are choices to make that you may not even know existed because the game doesn't explicitly point them out. Because of this, Deus Ex is immensely replayable and rewards experimentation. Well, that's the thing. The game is A to B. It's just the path you get there is just like it like branches out, but it still all connects at the end to the exact same location. So it's one ending. It's just how you get there is different. So it is linear. It's just slightly, whatever. A large part of Deus Ex revolves around the ability to improve J.C. Denton's abilities. There are 3 distinct ways to do this: augmentation canisters, augmentation upgrade canisters, and spending skill points. It's Bendy in the ink machine. Sorry. Using canisters, the player can improve Denton's skill via biomechanical augmentation. Around the world, the player can find various types of augmentation canisters, which, when used with a medical bot, will allow implementation of said canister. Denton has a number of augmentation slots in his body, and only one augmentation may be used per slot at any time. Each canister houses 2 augmentation, which are set in the game's code, and not random. You'll never find a canister that has a head augmentation and a leg augmentation. Canisters always house 2 augments for a single specific slot, forcing the player to choose one augmentation over the other. The slots are the head, the eye, the subdermal, the torso, arm, and leg. Skill points. At the start of each game, a player is allotted a set number of skill points, which they may immediately spend or save on various skills. Skill points can be spent to upgrade skills at any time during gameplay, though the most immediate improvements are seen by spending them some at the very start of the game. The player usually gains more skills by completing main and sub-objectives, though they can be gained simply by exploring the game world or performing certain actions. Every skill has 4 levels of training: untrained, trained, advanced, and mastered. The trainable skills are as follows. Computer allows hacking and manipulation of security consoles. Electronics reduces the number of multi-tools required for any non-computer skill-aided hacking. Environmental training allows the player to better survive poisonous areas and make better use of equipment such as rebreathers, hazard suits, and body armor. Lockpicking reduces the number of lockpicks required when lockpicking. Medicine increases the amount of damage healed by your medkit. Swimming increases the length of time you can swim without breathing and increases your swim speed. Weapons demolition, such as grenades, increases weapon damage, accuracy, and makes mines more forgiving during disarming. Heavy increases weapon damage, accuracy, movement speed when using heavy weapons, and reduces loading time. Low tech increases weapon damage, accuracy, and reloading time. What? Low tech is referred to as swords, knives, etc. Pistols, same with weapons damage, accuracy, and reloading time. And rifles. Sniper rifles, machine guns, yada yada yada. Also, a master level sniper can destroy a camera in a single hit. I'm not going to read the backstory, because the backstory actually gives a ton of plot spoilers, in my opinion. Okay, let's give a little bit of the plot. I don't want to give a ton of plot, but I'll give a little bit. So, in Deus Ex, you play as J.C. Denton, a rookie agent for the United Nations Anti-Terrorist Coalition, who has been nanotechnologically enhanced. JC's older brother, Paul Denton, also has a nano-augmented agent, shares his insights with JC along the way. At this time, UNATCO is dealing with the Great Death, a worldwide plague. Although there is a cure called ambrosia, the development and distribution of it has been slow. The National Secessionist Forces, the NSF, claims the cure is being blocked by secret organizations, so they have taken terrorist countermeasures. Yeah, that's about as far as I'm gonna go. Because everything else on here is revealing plot that I figured out by reading just the backstory. Like, there's a lot going on in the Deus Ex universe, more than you know. So, yeah, so that is Deus Ex, the first game. It is on Steam. It is ugly looking, because obviously it is a 2000s game. But I can get it. And I'm about 99% sure that they have mods for it to make it prettier. Anyway, back to the story. Now we go to the second game, Deus Ex Invisible War, also known as Deus Ex 2. This takes place 20 years after Deus Ex, in a world being rebuilt after a catastrophic event called the Collapse. Following a terrorist attack that destroys the city of Chicago, the player assumes the role of Alex D., a trainee at the fictional Tarsus Academy, whose support is sought by several organizations. As the game progresses, the player learns of conspiratorial factions which seek to drastically change the world. Invisible War was designed to allow player choices in both plot and gameplay, with branching plot lines and emergent gameplay elements. Invisible War retains most of the gameplay features of the original Deus Ex, boasting deep, story-driven gameplay. Players can choose their style of play according to their preference, but the game allows more freedom to avoid direct confrontation and violence. Invisible War boasts more free-form gameplay, allowing players to accomplish objectives in any order, and even create new objectives to complete. Character creation options have been restricted to choice of gender, general appearance, and difficulty. Gender is only an aesthetic change, with little difference on story progress. The development focused on refining the aspects of the first game. Many of the original game's checkpoints have been replaced with decision points, allowing players more freedom of choice in the story. Players can now choose to fight for a particular faction, opening up new plot arcs to explore. At some point in the game, players are forced to choose which faction they want to fight for. Difficulty has the same choices in the first game, with the upper two being hard and realistic. On easy and medium, you take the same amount of damage from AI, but on medium, the AI can take more damage. The primary difference from realistic and hard is the amount of damage you and your enemies can withstand. In realistic, both your enemies and you will suffer extreme damage from all weapons, and certain weapons such as rocket launchers spell instant death for you. Headshots are especially lethal on realistic as well, so a lucky shot from any one of your enemies can ruin you. On hard, weapon damage is drastically decreased all around, making it harder for your enemies to put you in an instant death situation, but your enemies have a lot more health. It's a trade-off, but generally speaking, realistic is still considered the hardest due to the risk of instant death. Let's see. User interface. Retooled the interface to be more accessible. Instead of the gameplay being interrupted by a series of menus, the interface has been consolidated to a retina overlay. It represents the nano device in Alex's eye, and has a circular design that lies outside of the screen. The overlay has a series of rings that rotate to reveal different functions and options depending on what items are selected or active. Yada yada yada. Instead of seeing text boxes appear at the top of the screen when someone is talking in your head, the developers opted to have holograms instead. The holo messages can be played on devices that double as jukeboxes. Yada, yada, yada. The development has removed the skill system for making more importance for augmentations. The nano augmentations have now been sanctioned by the government for civilian use and allow you to upgrade your abilities. There are now 15 augmentations to choose from, but only 5 slots. You have to choose wisely. While you can overwrite any existing augmentation with another one, you can't reuse an old augmentation. The nano augmentations range from defensive and skill enhancing to creepy and illegal. More specifically, you can buy your augmentations from the black market, which, while this allows you more unique and ethically questionable abilities, each comes with a downside. Each slot has 3 potential enhancements, 2 legal and 1 sold in the black market by the Omar. Once installed, the augmentation can be upgraded twice, optimizing the augmentation and sometimes adding new abilities. There are several new weapons in the game, including a bolt caster, an advanced version of the trank crossbow, concussion, proximity mine, glass destabilizer, spider bomb, energy blade, as well as old ones such as the pistol. 6 secret weapons and powerful weapons in not so obvious locations such as the Toxin Blade, Widowmaker SMG, Red Glacial Hunter, Assassin Pistol, Hellfire Bolt Caster, and a Dragon's Tooth Sword. Multi-tools still exist but are reminiscent of screwdrivers more than mobile phones. In this game, multi-tools will still serve their electronic bypass function but also serve as lockpicks. Data cubes, bioelectric cells, and medkits also continue to exist. Don't want to read the backstory? Let's see. In Deus Ex Invisible War, which takes place in 2072, you play as Alex D. Alex grew up in Chicago and is in training at the Tarsus Academy there. Tarsus is a new organization that apparently has powerful enemies, as the first event in the game is a terrorist attack on the Academy. The nanite detonator used in the terrorist attack completely destroys Chicago, forcing the survivors, including Alex, to flee to the Seattle headquarters. As if it wasn't enough, the headquarters are attacked soon thereafter. In the midst of this turmoil, it's your job to figure out who to trust by uncovering their secrets. Factions include the aforementioned Tarsus Academy, as well as these. There's the Order, a unified world religion, heeded by the shadowy Her Holiness. The Order can be seen as disjointed mishmash of every religion known to man, or a bunch of low-life terrorist tree huggers, or an inspired amalgamation that brings true balance to one's soul. Largely depends on who you're talking to. The WTO, the World Trade Organization, a global trade syndicate run by Chad Dumier, formerly of the terrorist group Silhouette. There's the Omar, a secret network of merchants seeking to make a hefty profit on illegal goods such as black market biomods. Although they aren't necessarily interested in politics, they are still a force that must be taken into consideration when making decisions. And then there are the Templars. Bet you thought Mandalay killed them and stole all their gold. Well, they're back and they have a real grudge against biomods. You'll find out that these factions are founded on what took place in Deus Ex. In Invisible War, factions are always vying for your loyalty. At first, it's only 2 factions. Then more start taking an interest in you. Each faction has parallel goal in each mission, and often you'll have to choose which goal to complete to show loyalty to one and only one faction. Unlike in the first game, you have complete control over which faction you fight for and what you do. And it's hard to really give a description on what the plot is, because Invisible War is non-linear. Encountering certain plot elements depends on the actions of the player. The game also offers several subplots the player may or may not encounter, depending on their actions within the game. So, yeah. And it gives a lot of spoilers from Deus Ex. So, once again, bleh. We can't really talk about that, but that is Invisible War, the sequel and second game to Deus Ex. Now, are you ready to have your mind blown? The third game in this series, Deus Ex Human Revolution, is a prequel to Deus Ex, the first game. Deus Ex Human Revolution is set in 2027, 25 years prior to the events of Deus Ex 1. Just as human augmentation begins to enter mainstream life and is chronologically the first game in the timeline, augmentations are not the advanced nanotechnological augmentations used by the two protagonists in the previous games. They are mechanical augmentations. The type of augmentation used by two characters, for example, in Deus Ex. Players take the role of Adam Jensen, a security consultant employed by Seraph Industries to protect a research lab in Detroit. So, as you recall, basically, oh my god. The plot of this game, like, we're talking like several pages worth of synopsis here, so I'm going to have to just summarize it. So Adam Jensen is charged with protecting the Seraph Industries research lab when it gets attacked one night. In it, the labs are essentially destroyed, and several top scientists are deemed to be killed, as well as most of the lab has been burned, destroyed, and there are dead scientists everywhere. Adam Jensen, in the process, is brought to the brink of death and is only saved by having his entire body rebuilt with mechanical augmentations. 6 months afterwards is when the real gameplay starts. Adam is finally returning back to work as a basically completely rebuilt augmented human. And he has made it his job to find out what happened that night 6 months ago. In the process of doing that, he has to protect his employer, David Seraph's interests in the company. And as it turns out, those interests that are being attacked are linked to the original said attack. As it turns out, the Illuminati is behind the scenes attempting to pull the strings of human augmentation via the human revolution of being able to enhance and perfect humans via mechanical augmentations. The Illuminati is doing this by slowly taking over all the businesses that are creating these nanotechnologies, either by sabotage or just flat out buying them out under the guise of one major company. In the end, Adam discovers a plot by the Illuminati to install a chip inside every augmented human that would allow them to essentially switch control into them and, and completely control them. This plot is foiled by a member who defected from the Illuminati, who instead decided to warn the world of the Illuminati's plot by making every augmented human go crazy, thus creating the incident and causing major distrust in augmentation and setting the field for mankind divided. In the end, Adam Jensen discovers that the 5 scientists who were deemed dead in the attack were actually the ones who created the chip, but they did not know what they were creating as they were being kept separated from each other. So that's kind of the approximate main plot. We're going to discuss the themes after we finish the other 2 synopsises of the other 2 games. But we are going to pick up now with Deus Ex The Fall, which is the 4th game, and it is for iOS, Android, and PC. This game is a sequel to the novel Deus Ex Icarus Effect and features Ben Saxon. The game came out in Obviously, I said 2014. But, The Fall is set in 2027, described as the golden era for science, technology, and human augmentation, but also a time of great social divide and global conspiracy. At the end of Deus Ex Icarus Effect... You know what? I'm not going to say that in case anybody wants to actually read the book, Deus Ex Icarus Effect. Which is obviously, yeah. So, the intro to Deus Ex The Fall depicts a secret conversation between Bob Page and other members of the Illuminati. Things mentioned include a candidate firm established to serve a viable proxy, a ghost agent in New York, and clinical trials that require further testing. Page assures that the testing can be seen to in Panama. He asks if they are at risk. Jaron Namir responds, stating that their new recruit is ready but unstable, and that the scientist is under control and will obey. When Page asks Namir about the two that got away who interfered in Geneva, Ben Saxon and Anno Kelso, Namir promises that if they come out of hiding, he will kill them himself. So this essentially picks up from where Icarus Effect left off. So Ben is used to be a member of Bell Tower and was in Australia and yada yada yada. Oh my god, it's so hard to just talk about what to do without giving huge spoilers for people who, you know, what to do. But this is not considered to be one of the best games. Particularly on Steam, it generally has a very low, mostly negative opinion on this game. Much of it is, this is a phone game, but if you understand that it's a phone game, it's great. A lot of the people just say that it's a phone game and it looks like shit and it's not worth $10. But at the same time, we love this universe. This might be a game we pick up when it goes on sale or something. But, yeah, this just looks like it's... So the whole point of The Fall is to pick up from the book, as well as the point is to just expand upon this world. Because like I said, Human Revolution and Mankind Divided are setting the stage for Deus Ex and Deus Ex 2. There are major characters that have been appearing ever since Deus Ex Human Revolution that go into huge play in Deus Ex 1 and 2. So, it's kind of interesting. But anyway, let's get to the 5th game, which is Deus Ex Mankind Divided, which, once again, this is a sequel to Deus Ex Human Revolution, and also happens before Deus Ex. And of course, Adam Jensen returns as the protagonist. And of course, Mankind Divided is set in the autumn of 2029, 2 years after the events of Human Revolution, which culminated in the AUG incident when Hugh Darrow hijacked the biochip signal. As a result of that signal, of course, augmented people around the world were forced to violently attack those around them until the signal was shut down by Adam Jensen. In the aftermath of the AUG incident, the public is outraged and begins aggressively opposing mechanical augmentation. This results in a divided world where mechanically augmented humans are forcibly separated from non-augmented ones. By 2029, Jensen now works for the Interpol-funded Task Force 29, an international unit that deals with augmented terrorists that have sprung up after the AUG incident. However, Jensen's alliance is split between Task Force 29 and the Juggernaut Collective, which is a hacker group devoted to opposing the Illuminati. The Juggernaut Collective seeks to investigate the Illuminati's influence in the Central European Division of TF-29, a unit based in Prague and led by branch director Jim Miller. As told in the novel Deus Ex Blacklight, Jensen had decided to collaborate with the Juggernaut Collective toward the common goal of bringing down the Illuminati. So there's a ton of novels that are 100% canon, just based out of Deus Ex. Let's see. Meanwhile, the Illuminati have been working on an initiative called the Human Restoration Act, a proposed UN resolution. If enacted, the Human Restoration Act would require people with mechanical augmentations to have a control chip inserted in them, or else be placed in designated facilities specifically built for augmented people. Let's see. Save files from Deus Ex Human Revolution do not carry over into Mankind Divided, so unfortunately, individual player choices in Human Revolution are not reflected in Mankind Divided. Instead, certain outcomes in the story are all canonically follow from different possible paths in Human Revolution. For example, regardless of which signal the player chose to broadcast at the end of Human Revolution, Panchaea collapses in every possible ending. Developers have stated that regardless of which signal is broadcast at the end of Human Revolution, the truth is obscured by rumors and disinformation. Disinformation about what happens surrounding the AUG incident leads to the truth being intentionally hidden. The resolution of the Human Revolution storyline allows the developers to use different aspects of each ending to form the backdrop of Mankind Divided. It's also really hard for you to make a sequel of a game in which you have several different outcomes, because then you have to have so many different beginnings and try to tie them in. And you essentially have several different games almost at that point, and that's why it's so difficult. So, let's see. The game features FPS RPG and stealth gameplay elements. You have a wide variety of options for approaching each mission, usually multiple ways to complete your mission objectives, such as, playing the game without being detected or killing anyone, including boss fights. There's hacking mini games that have been made better, as well as enhanced. There's new weapons, new augments that were not in the first game. They made combat and tactics better and different. Basically, it's just enhance. And of course there's some DLC, yada yada yada. But really, what everybody really wanted me to do was to discuss the themes within Deus Ex, Mankind Divided, and Human Revolution. So the theme of Human Revolution is dealing with the ethics of transhumanism, and carries an overarching message of humanity's reach exceeding its grasp. Mankind is using mechanical augmentations, says Jean-Francois Dugas before the game's release, but there is still much to be determined in terms of their effect on society and the ultimate direction it will lead us in. The Greek myth of Icarus and Daedalus appears in Adam Jensen's dreams as an allegory to his thoughts, and also, given that Daedalus was the name of the artificial intelligence in Deus Ex, an intellectual bridge to the original game. The pace of technological development is reflected visually by a Renaissance theme. Characters who support the advances of human augmentation dress themselves and decorate their homes in reinterpreted late medieval Italian style, and the game as a whole has a sepia-tinted color palette reminiscent of historic manuscripts. In contrast, characters who oppose augmentation wear clothing that is more or less current day. Conspiracy theories and immensely powerful corporations also feature strongly, as in Deus Ex, with the Illuminati playing a key role in the story. As a secondary theme of human liberty and political secessionism underplays the game, setting up the events that led to the world of the first Deus Ex. So, one of the main things is really considering, in this game, you just talk about the ability to just modify who you are as a human. That's a huge thing in the first game and the second game, with the second game looking at it in a more pessimistic way. And in the first game, looking at it in the optimistic, look at all the ways it can help. Like, for instance, the pilot who flies you around in Human Revolution has augments that enhance her ability to fly. She's got... So instead of having to wear, like, heavy, burdened, headphones and everything to communicate, there's a communicator within her head that allows her to communicate with radio towers or with her passenger if they're augmented. There's helpful ones at that, but also there's huge criticism even from the very beginning about how the augments are used for military. What with the development of the Secret Typhoon, which essentially projects RPGs out of the individual's body. And RPG as in rocket-propelled grenade, not a rocket. So, side note, RPGs are interesting because RPGs can be lots of different things. Mostly people just, consider it to be explosives, but it's really any rocket-powered projectile. So you can have an RPG launcher that literally just shoots rocks because it's being propelled by an explosion. So rocket-propelled is basically just an explosion-generated force. But anyway, the Typhoon has both lethal and non-lethal applications. So it doesn't have to kill people. It can just render somebody immobile type of deal. But still, that's a huge thing that people are, worried about. As well as people point to Adam Jensen. Because he was basically almost killed and he was rebuilt as an augmented human. Every part of his body has been rebuilt as an augment. However, he has been given choices on how he wants to use his augments. He was given both lethal and non-lethal augments to use, and it's up to him if he wants to kill with it or if he wants to find other ways to do it. And that obviously shapes how players interact with him. Players will note that Jensen does not kill, both good and bad. It's just one of those, free choice in this game is also talked about a lot, especially considering the fact that one of the huge main plot points is the fact that players are grappling with the idea that the Illuminati want to remove the ability of choice from augmented humans by allowing them to control them if they do not like the way they're doing things. So the fact that, free choice is subtly given to you. Like, you have choices of, you can save people, you can kill people, you can send somebody to jail, or you can kill that person. Hell, you could even accept a bribe from that person, too. You're given a lot of powerful... just a lot of different things, really. But, it still all circles back to the idea of, no matter how you choose it, when you're installing augments, you are essentially overriding what makes you human, which is that you're not perfect. You're not perfect. Some aspects of you are going to be weaker than others. And now you're able to play God, essentially, and change how you look, how you perform, and give you abilities beyond those of just a normal human. And that's where people just question. It's like, were humans meant to reach this high? Were humans meant to improve upon our own design? And thanks to the AUG incident at the end of Human Revolution, People say no, humans were not meant to go this far. And you're shown several different examples, both in the first and second game, of what happens when you augment the wrong people. There were 3 mercenaries in the first game who essentially killed the old Adam Jensen before he was remade into augmented Adam Jensen easily. Like, one guy just literally picked him up and threw him through a wall. Beyond that, but once Adam was able to match them in terms of prowess and everything, they were on level playing fields, and it was fine. But, you know, what happens, you know? And in the second game, you've got this hugely, you've just got this one guy who's very, 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 augmented and very dangerous because of it. He's huge, and he's packing a lot of heat. And he's not the kind of person who, you know, people would typically want to see augmented, because he's angry and he has political motivations for why he wants to do things, which can be scary for people. And that's kind of the theme of the second game. Well, both games really is people are committing acts of terrorism to try to make the public realize that what they're doing is wrong. Right. Augmenting in general makes you question what humanity truly is. That's right in a motive. But, like, it's a... Yeah, right, humans want to progress, but humans aren't going to progress as fast as humans want to be able to, and we can artificially progress ourselves faster. But, in my mind, this game makes a good way of saying, how do we want to make a point to prove that what you're doing is wrong, and we want your attention? The game says terrorism is the answer, as well as saying terrorism is not the answer. Because, yes, it is giving players, like, it's what's the word I want to say? The population is seeing the augmented humans, and they are hearing the augmented humans cries for, you know, it's like, we don't... Okay, so in the second game, there's terrorism in both games. The second game is focused on the augmented's call of, we're not, you know, subhuman, we are still people too, we want you to hear us, we don't want you to keep treating us this way. But at the same time, by committing terrorist acts, they're also weakening their own position, because people are like, look at them, they're blowing things up, they're dangerous, they're scary, we need to stay away from them. And of course, in the first game, you've got 2 terrorist groups. One terrorist group, which is legitimately the main terrorist group you're going against, which is the people who are specifically going after those scientists with Adam Jensen and all that. And then, of course, there is the and then, of course, there's the Anti-Augmentation Coalition, who's the human terrorist group, who's also going against any business that is all for enhancing humans with augments and developing them, because they believe that it is wrong, inhuman, and should not be done. And so they want their voices to be heard, but of course the public sees that and consider them crazies. And the big debate that really just keeps going back and forth is, you know, well, in my mind, one of the debates is terrorism the way to get your, you know, your message out there? Sure, it will make people take you seriously, but at the same time, you're going to scare the general population, and you're going to almost delegitimize your claim. If you're claiming that augmented people deserve to have the same rights and aren't as dangerous, killing people, blowing up people, taking things hostage, and generally being outright aggressive is not going to show several of your points. It's like, no matter what you do, there will be bad actors, you know? There are people who will always want peace. There are people who are always going to be violent. And it's just a fine line to walk a lot of the time, where it's like, where do you stop? Where do you go? It's just... it's very hard to get there because we don't know how to get there, you know? So, yeah, that's just one of the main things that I've noticed a lot with this. Is just with the terrorism aspect. Now, jumping back to the ability to enhance yourselves. Oh, no worries. Take your time. I know that, you know, these are some deep subjects, and it's kind of hard to get your thoughts together, especially as you're listening to somebody else. You're trying to absorb what they're saying, and then you want to get your two-piece out there, and it's hard. No worries. But I'm gonna jump back to augmentations. So if you want to say something, feel free. You can chime in, and I can jump back to it. But with augments, it's really hard because no matter what you do, humans will move towards augmenting themselves. Like, that is a fact. But one good thing that they do address here is, like, there's 3 outcomes. You know, there's the whole, you can outright... well, there's 3 major, and in my opinion, 2 extreme and 1 moderate outcomes that this game looks at. One of them is to push for the complete eradication of human augments because it's too dangerous and you shouldn't do that. Another outcome is human augments are safe, they're fine, but only because science is continuously striving to move forward, and we should not be regulated, and we should be able to do what we want because science is moving forward for humans, and that's another extreme. The other one is actually not outright stated in the game, and is not really a choice, to be honest. The third one is a moderate view of the whole human modification is good for humans to advance. However, doing it unchecked is going to be the downfall of humanity. And that the best way to handle things is to instead open up augmenting humans under the watchful guise of the government and install ethical boundaries and checks in so that another aug incident can't happen, which would be basically demonopolize everything. Another would be to ensure that, we stop a bunch of, sure, every country is going to want to create combat modifications. Well, there should be a limit to it, Don't turn someone into a walking, talking human bomb. Don't turn someone into a walking, talking gun store type of deal. But, enhancing people, that has both military and labor and just civilian applications, Making somebody's legs stronger so they can run farther, jump farther, make someone's arms heavier, or heavier, stronger, so that they can lift things more, carry things, throw things. That helps the laborer be able to perform more tasks, so that creates more jobs. It's good for combatants because obviously, combat. And it helps the common person. Say somebody, gets into a car accident and loses the use of their legs. Augmentations that strengthen the legs could give them the ability to walk again. You lose your arm to something, you can get a new arm. People who are blind can get retinal augmentations to be able to see again. There's augmentations for your lungs to make breathing easier and everything. Let's see. Emotive says, I fall somewhere in the moderate standpoint, but also think finding that balance is difficult to check. Like, is there theoretically a worldwide guideline? Can all governments be trusted not to make secret weapon mods for their military? I feel like most countries can't be trusted not to, whether it's illegal or not. Yeah, that's the problem. There needs to be... it's not something that would definitely be able to work in our current day and age, where everyone is so divided, so antagonistic against each other, unless there's a worldwide order. Essentially, unless you have peace among all the countries, there will be people who will develop their own mods, and they will do it in secret. And there's not much you can do about that, unfortunately. And that's why it's a fine line and it's hard to tell what you should or should not do. It's very difficult. And it's one of those, you're gonna have to weigh the pros of the con. It's like, how can we make... No, moderate is not possible. But I'm just saying those are the only three options they basically give you in the game. Well, they give you two explicitly in the game. The other one is kind of pieced together. Right, it will inevitably swing towards the terrorism side because, well, it will swing both ways, both on the non-augmentation side and on the augmentation side. So, unfortunate, but that's how it be. Yeah. That's essentially how it is. People do suck. But as I'm trying to say, one of the biggest balancing is how much more benefit will there be for the non-military side? Like, how much better can we make life for our civilians? How can we make everything, easier? How can we make things better? How can we do all these different things? So, right, like the medical side. There's a huge medical side. There's also the workforce side. There's a ton of different ways that this can be used and helpful, and yet there's just no way of doing it. Like, currently we've got baby augments. Yes, that's what I'm about to get to. We do have baby augments already existing, but they're just not to the degree that we see in the Deus Ex universe. Like, we've got baby remote controlled, well, brain-controlled robotic hands that you can think, and you can, like, close your hand, open your hand. No, I did not mean augments for babies. I meant the augmentation system is very, very infantile. It's young. Sorry. But, it's in its infant stage. It's very new. It's very controversial. Like, you can already see how humanity views augmenting anything. Who remembers the stem cell debacle? Well, not even debacle, the uproar over the ideas that you were using stem cells to regrow parts of the human body for people who, you know, lost things, or you were going to use it to replace, use stem cell research to essentially help people. Like, stem cells would have been... Stem cells is the best example we have towards how humanity legitimately will view these augmentations. And that's probably a lot of where human revolution got its augment, non-augment divide. It's just looking at how angry people got, mostly Christians, got at the idea of using stem cells to fix themselves. Like, people claim it's just not right. It's not human. It's not, not what God intended. Well, guess what? Regardless if there's a God or not, we are put on this earth and we are to make the best of our situation. And right now, the best of our situation is the fact that we can make our situation better. So, I support the idea of human modifications. Because I've always supported the idea of human modification. I just think it needs to be regulated and under close scrutiny. I don't think it should be unchecked, and I think any country that engages in their own research and development needs to be held accountable for what their country inevitably produces. If you end up producing military modifications, you need to be held responsible for if it breaks any of the guidelines that are established, you know? I think we can make things better for ourselves. And I think doing so is a good idea. So, yeah, it's a hot take. It's a, me flat out putting my opinion out there. But I can see more good coming out of it. Alongside the bad, but I can see the good right now being better than the bad, assuming we've got the right things put in place. So, does anybody have anything to say about that? Or are we gonna call it a wrap? This was a fun one. It's been in the making for a while to actually talk about. But, let's see. You think you already said what you were going to say. It circles back around in your head. Alright, then I guess we can call that a, wrap. We were able to kind of hit everything. Show that while we may have hit everything in the Deus Ex universe, you realize that we have barely scratched the surface of Deus Ex, because we still have the future Deus Ex to handle. And not just that, but we also... Actually, let's double check this before I say anything. Let's see. Let's Google this. So, Square Enix put the Deus Ex series on hiatus because Mankind Divided was underwhelming in sales. However, they said it will come back someday. And there will be a soft reboot of Deus Ex, but Adam Jensen will not be there. This was a leak in January of 2020. Basically, it's out there. It looks like it's coming at some point. So we will have more to expand upon in the Deus Ex universe. As to what that will entail, we don't know. But, yeah. I think we did a good amount of gameplay and other talk today. So, yeah. If anybody has anything they want to say or want to continue the discussion, you can join the Discord or just comment in on YouTube. If you're on Spotify, well, sucks, but go to the YouTube video or find the Discord, and you can continue the discussion there. So, anyway, that's going to be it for today. So, thank you, everybody, for watching. I hope you all enjoyed. And until the next time, everybody, stay funky, people.